Welcome to Mocktails and Masterpieces with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra. Today's episode is sponsored by Anthony Team Realty. Hello and welcome to this special episode of Mocktails and Masterpieces. I'm Dana Stone, the Executive Director of the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra, and I'm here today with our guest soloist, Sirena Huang, who will be joining us later this month / February 1st for a very special collaboration with our longtime partners, the International Violin Competition. So Sirena, will you take a minute to kind of just give some information about yourself and connection to IVCI and just everything?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so excited about returning in February. I guess Indianapolis it now feels like a second home to me. It's a very special place to me. Well, a little background about just my music life, I guess. I started when I was 4. My parents are not musicians. But my parents just thought that it would be nice for their kids to learn an instrument or something. My older sister is the first one in my family to play an instrument. She started out with piano, and I would just like attend some of her lessons. I was just following my mom all the time as a kid, and my mom noticed that I was strangely interested in the lessons, my sister's lessons. So she was like, "Oh, maybe you should learn something." And so they recommended that I start with violin because I was tiny and I had really small hands, and violins come in small sizes. So I started with the Suzuki method. So I was a Suzuki kid. And then I attended a Juilliard pre-college program when I was 9, and then I went on to go there for undergrad, and then I went to Yale for grad school. So that's kind of like the education, music education I had, and I studied with at pre-college and a little bit during undergrad, Stephen Clapp, who at the time was the dean of Juilliard. And then I shared studios with Sylvia Rosenberg, and then at the very end, at my last 2 years at Juilliard, I studied with Itzhak Perlman. And then at Yale, I studied with Mr. Hyo Kang. So I'm trying to kind of give a really brief summary of all the things that I learned or what I did education-wise. And I've really been performing ever since I was probably 9 years old. So it's like
Incredible.
a huge part of my life. I forget what it was like before I had, performance was a huge part of, something that I do and I love.
Yeah.
And going to the Indianapolis competition was a total dream. I mean, not even just how, the results of how it turned out, but just even attending it and participating in it was something that I've always dreamed of doing. Growing up, my family would listen to the Indianapolis competition like it was the Olympics. Like every 4 years, we would just we would huddle around in like my dad's studio, and we would like listen to the broadcast, and it was like really fun family bonding moments. But then yeah, to participate in it was very, very meaningful. And to have won it is just it still doesn't really sink in now, and I don't think it ever will. But I'm just so grateful for all the opportunities and the people that support me.
That's incredible. So are you continuing to compete? What's life like for you as a performer right now?
Um, I I am done with competitions, which is great. Um, yeah, I have learned a lot from competitions over the years, but now that I have won this one, I can happily say like I'm done with competing. Um, and my manager, Glenn Kwok, who is also who is the director of the Indianapolis competition, he is absolutely incredible. He's keeping me very busy with concerts. And so that's just something that I'm focusing on now, is just performance full time. So that's sort of my dream, and I'm just so excited I get to live that now.
It's really awesome. I know you shared before we came online that in addition to playing with ICO at the beginning of February, you're actually playing under Maestro Kramer's baton in Louisiana. So kind of nice that you'll have two different works to work with him. You'll have a pretty
Yeah.
good rapport by the time you're back here in Indy.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah, I'm looking
exciting.
forward to it for sure. Yeah, I hear so many amazing things about him. It's just going to be so fun to, like you're saying, work two completely very different works with him. It's just, yeah, it's going to be a treat.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really neat for him and for you. So I'm going to ask kind of just a basic question. Do you have favorite violinists, past or present, that either inspire you or challenge you to kind of view your presentation a different way, performance? Just curious.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of old violinists. And when I say old violinists, a lot of them are no longer alive.
Sure.
But there's something about, players like Heifetz and Menuhin and Oistrakh and Milstein. Um, and I just feel like whenever I hear them, their interpretation is so uh individualistic, like it's so different. And it was a time in violin playing where if you just listen to the recording and you don't know who's playing, you could literally guess who it is because
Mm,
it's so distinct. Everyone's playing style is actually so yeah, it's just very, very easy to tell. And so just personally, I mean, that's, sometimes when let's say if I'm playing a piece that I've played 30 times and I'm lacking some inspiration, I do several things, of course. But one of the things I do is I will listen to the same piece, and when I hear, let's say, 7 different interpretations of the same phrase or the same movement or the same whatever, um, it's very inspiring. It's not in the sense that, I want to do what they're doing, but it
mhm.
it 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 opens up my mind in terms of like, oh, there's so many ways you can interpret and approach something. And so I always find the biggest like the boldest ideas and opinions that speak to me by, when I listen to older violinists. Yeah, and I especially their playing style is just it really hits home for me.
So interesting. So, and speaking of a piece that you've probably prepared a lot of times, the Beethoven Violin Concerto, which you'll be playing for with us. So, a piece like that you have had in your hands for, I think you said it was one of the early pieces that you learned as a child, or maybe it's just a favorite.
Yeah.
How do you prepare something that um, when each time is sort of a different experience? How does that work?
So actually, this is not one of the pieces that I have played like countless times, like the
Oh,
Medalist
okay.
concerto. I learned it. Hmm, I learned it in college actually,
Oh, okay.
and I had only performed it in public with orchestra once. And that was, oh man, I want to say like 2018, so it was
Okay.
a couple years ago. So to me, this piece is there's of course there's a lot of pros and cons to a piece that is considerably fairly fresh and new to me. Um,
Okay.
and so the amazing part of that is that it's fresh and it's new, and a lot of times with pieces that maybe I've already performed like so many times, that's the big challenge, is to find freshness, something new, discovering something new, and to feel genuine emotions to something that maybe physically I'm like so used to playing. And for Beethoven, I am not at that stage with this piece, which I really appreciate because I can almost play it in a way as if I can be in the perspective of a listener, because the listener maybe obviously unless you're a professional musician yourself, probably doesn't know the piece that well, probably recognizes a lot of it, of course, but not like, really you can play like
Intimate
backwards.
knowledge. Yeah.
um, and so when I'm playing it, I feel like I can still completely relate to that feeling. Um, and of course, the challenge of it is to how do you make sure to play in a way that this piece is fully digested and a part of you. Um, and so this is a piece that I started working on, picking up again many months ago. And I want to uh visit it and work on it for a period of time and then put it away and then visit it again so that it kind of a lot of it I think a lot of things happen when you're not actively working on it. You just kind of let the music sit in your subconscious, and then when you
Mhm.
revisit it, it feels like an older friend that you're visiting again. Um,
Yeah.
so that's sort of something that I've been working on. And I all will also say this is probably my favorite violin concerto out there. Like, yeah, I mean, Beethoven has always been my favorite composer,
Okay.
period. So, having the opportunity to play his amazing concerto is just it's just an incredible experience. Yeah.
We're so excited to hear it. And I know that you have a piece that you'd like to share with us, with our audiences. So I'll let you introduce that and then we'll cut to the recording.
Sure. So this piece was played during the classical finals at the Indianapolis competition with Echo. It's Chrysler's La Gitana. And I want to share this clip because um, I remember vividly playing with these musicians, and I just completely forgot that I was in a competition. I mean, they played so beautifully, so well, and I just felt like we were collaborating, we were enjoying every moment together. And I think it's such a blessing to be with musicians that are so passionate about what they do and play so incredibly well. And to be in a very stressful setting, like in a competition, and to just kind of like forget about it and
Out
just
of
be in the
body, you're
moment.
just, yeah, just experience.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So that was a very, very memorable performance and just experience for me. So that's what I want to share with you guys.
All right, well, here's the Chrysler. Serena, thank you so much for sharing that. It was stunning. So I have to ask, besides classical music, are there any genres that you enjoy playing or listening to? Love to hear about.
Um, when I'm not playing, I mean, okay, I mainly just play classical music, but I do enjoy listening to all sorts of genres. I wouldn't say one particularly, but it kind of depends on my mood. I have been really getting into listening to jazz for violinists.
Oh.
I love listening to musicians like Stuff Smith and Eddie South. I mean, I think the way they play and the way they improvise and their creativity is just off the charts. And that's really inspiring for me. But some other times I'll just, turn on the radio, pop station or whatever, and just kind of, it's kind of a way to to wind down and just,
Mhm.
listen to other types of music.
That's so funny because many people listen to classical music to wind down.
Yeah.
It seems like the opposite of
Yeah.
a traditional person. That's
Right.
pretty cool. So in improvisation, is there much opportunity for you to improvise? Is that something you enjoy doing or just enjoy experiencing what others create?
Um, I think, well, for as a classical musician, our level of improvisation is very different, and maybe one could say slightly more limited than, a jazz musician. But I have ventured into writing my own cadenzas sometimes. Like for example, in the classical finals at Indianapolis, the Mozart concerto, I had uh, worked on. I wrote the cadenza, I also worked on it with my friend who is a composer and just kind of like, figured out something that was that felt original and meaningful to me. Um, of course, that's very different than jazz musicians. You know, uh, Improvising on the spot during performance, that's a different skill and something that I actually really wish that or I hope that maybe I can explore more in the future, as I'm sure that really changes the way you approach music in general. Um,
Mhm.
but for classical musicians, I think there is an element of improvisation in the sense that how you interpret something could be very different from moment to moment.
Yeah.
We could have the same notes, the same rhythm and tempo, maybe, but even sometimes tempos you could change too. But even within all of these quote confinements, to find freedom within that is also very, very gratifying, and I would consider that a form of improvisation too.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So audiences, make sure that you get your tickets for this special collaboration with the International Violin Competition with Serena. We also have a world premiere with Jorge Muniz and Classical Music Indie. So lots of exciting partners coming together to make new music, traditional, very famous music, and it'll be a day of joy. I have to say, Serena, when we named this concert, what you told me about the Beethoven violin concerto a year ago about how it was so joyful, I was like, oh, let's name this concert Joyful Solidarity. So solidarity, the nod to the premiere piece with Jorge, and joyful because of the way that you approach the Beethoven. So I know that audiences will feel that joy in your performance, and we look forward to seeing you on February 1st at the Schrott Center for the Arts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.